Yeah, this is going to be a really, really important lesson today. And I think it'll be one of the most important lessons I've done so far. And I think it's the nature of being seen. It is your deepest need. It is your greatest need. Being seen not just on a psychological level, but I believe to be seen on the deepest way possible means to actualize your existence. It gives a significance and a meaning. And there's something really interesting about that because I've been recently working a lot on maternal wounds. And, a lot of what I do here is not just talking about the psychology, but interlacing it with my life. And there's a reason why I do that. And it's because I'm 26 years old. I promise you this much, that real wisdom is one part experience. And I believe that it's learning the lesson of the experience, being able to internalize it in its truth, not just removing it to your perception of it. So being able to internalize the experience itself creates the wisdom. In a lot of ways, you can't really internalize an experience if you're still protecting yourself from the experience. So the nature of this conversation is to be seen. In a lot of ways, when we function unconsciously, we're not aware that sometimes we actually start doing the right things for ourselves. Yet, the whole point is that in order to transcend, there has to be a conscious will in relationship to your actions. And I've noticed a lot of this work that I've done is because of a relationship that I came out of 5 years ago. Now, the nature of that relationship was one where I had these two worlds that were conflicting. One of the biggest discoveries that I've had in that relationship was not just how much of myself I was repressing, but also how much of myself that I discovered in it. And in a lot of ways, the deepest need that we're looking for and the relationship that we will pick is going to be the relationship that allows us to experience ourselves. And you might go, well, what does that mean? And in a lot of ways, to experience the repressed parts of ourselves, and that could be the parts of us that feel lonely, it could be the parts of us that are hurt, it's the parts of us that are rejected, it's the parts of us that we feel shame, it's the parts of us that are afraid. And when we are unconsciously allowing ourselves to feel or experience that, what we're inherently doing is removing ourselves from those experiences, and so we never really see ourselves for them. So our relationships function as a way to build a bridge to what we cannot feel for ourselves, and inherently the relationship becomes destructive because you have to put yourself into a position to where you are experiencing those emotions, and it's almost taken away all of your autonomy, but the relationship that you are seeking is one that allows you to be actualized. What I've noticed there to be a great wound of is a great maternal wound. I know that despite what people think is that, fatherless homes issues creates what you call very harsh and critical mothers. What happens is that those mothers don't give their children the ability to emotionally regulate, and that's really important. Of course, there's no question about it that, the fatherless homes is definitely affecting women in relationship to how they need to feel protected, that they're going to have to start protecting themselves. Like as if men don't understand this truth, is that your purpose is to protect and preserve, and provide. And it's to allow the feminine to flourish. And you're going to have to be a man that's deeply connected to that in order to really understand women. And there's something about being able to understand the feminine that allows you to understand the purpose of your life as a man. Yeah, we're connected. Men and women are deeply connected. And it's a universal truth, and it's made by God. And there isn't one without the other. And I promise you, the missing parts of yourself are often in the opposite sex, and they could really reflect back something to you that could allow you to piece these broken fragments. You could feel a completeness in your soul, and you need to feel that completeness. It's what we're here to fulfill, and there is a hole in the soul, and this is your path. Maternal wounds are interesting because they shape your understanding of a God in relationship to love, what is possible. They create beliefs about life. They create beliefs about love and intimate relationships. And there's also subtle mechanisms that exist in relationship to them. Because on top of attachments and how they're created, all of attachment styles and the attachment theory in general is actually created based off of a child's relationship with their mother. And the maternal represents connection. Connection being the basis and growth of all individuals. You can't take that away from somebody. They have to feel connected to themselves. And today is a different tone. It's a different tone. And I wanted to embody a lot more heart in this video because I feel like it's necessary. And I will speak about myself. The relationship that I came out of was probably the most pain I've ever experienced in my life. I noticed the nature of pain as that there's a tremendous amount of loss. And where there's loss, you realize in your life, you got to be willing to sacrifice or else you'll lose it all. And there's something deeply important about that, because you could sacrifice these things that you will inevitably lose towards what's most valuable and important to you, and you could come closer to an eternal covenant that binds you to a clarity. And it's a clarity about the existence of life, and there's a grace in that existence. When we talk about who hurt you, it's a question that'll make you feel very weak. Doesn't mean you are. Because it's true, we've all been hurt. And the truth is, you may have been hurt by the people closest to you. There's no question about it as to why I work this job, why I do what I do. My whole life I've been looking for connection. And a lot of this work has been a blessing to a lot of people, I know that. But it's been a real blessing for me. It's given me a space to have a voice. And there's this emotional mouth. I recognize that it allows me to be seen. And I could feel and I could express and I can create with that. That sets me free. And creativity is the truest expression. This is my art form. Who hurt you? Great question. In my men's group that I had today, I noticed that the nature of hatred is, unfortunately for the people that are closest to you, such a deep emotion, hatred. Hatred is a lot like love. It's a cocktail of pain and love. That's what makes it so difficult. It's difficult to, hate somebody and love them at the same time. How do you make sense of that? It's like, well, welcome to life. I think you're going to realize there's a lot of loss. In that relationship I was in, I won't get into too many details, but I'll definitely understand. I'll get you up to date with a little bit of, there are parts of you that need to be seen. And you might even say, well, what is it that I seek to validate through others? Is really what you seek to recognize for yourself. And the reason why I'm talking about, emotional validation being something that's so important, and I'm noticing that the traditional framework by which people understand personal development is actually really backwards. Because we're the future. The younger generation tends to really understand this. That there's a deeper consciousness that has evolved. And an evolution is a return to. And returning to this sensitivity is created a lot more deeply sensitive people, myself included. And what I find to be interesting, what I hear across my clients across the board, is that they all had to grow up. And there's something beautiful about growing up in the truest sense, but then there's telling a 7-year-old to man up. And then there's completely disregarding how you were hurt. And yet, in a lot of ways, when you disregard how you were hurt, you remove the places in your life where you were loved. And something interesting about healing from breakups and the loss of intimate relationships is you have to be able to experience the times you were hurt in them. And I noticed that if you can do that, then you could definitely see the times you were loved. And in a lot of ways, it's hard to lose someone that you love, to lose somebody that you spent so much time with, to lose somebody you've been so intimately bonded with. Yeah, it's a part of yourself. The clarity that's created after a breakup is when somebody can look back. They could see the love in the relationship. They could see why they were there. They could also see what they were looking to meet. They could also see a future that they wanted to build, and I promise you, you were seen in that relationship. Don't remove that from yourself. There was a part of you that was seen, and you need that part of you to be seen, and I promise you, these are the parts of you that you wish were loved by your parents. This is the part of you that you wish was embraced by your mother. And I promise you, that's a real conversation, because it's interesting, the power that women have is that it's like they hold unconditional love. It's what we turn to. We're not looking for a solution from the mother. We're looking for an embrace. And that's 50% of existence. Potentially, you might look for a solution from the father. In a lot of ways, sometimes you're also looking to be heard. And there's something deeply beautiful about love being the question. And it's always been the question. And it seems to be the premise of the biblical stories. It's the accumulation, all of the stories into the New Testament, and understanding that God is love, and that love is a part of God. What happens when we start to internalize that conversation, we start to recognize that it seems to be the one thing that we're seeking. Connecting to it on an existential level can only be done intrinsically. And when you start recognizing how your childhood traumas really mirror your relationship with love, you begin to understand that you're deeply confused in the face of it. that there's a much higher aim in your life. And when you take love and you make that your aim, and you have to understand that love is tremendously courageous because you might have to go for yourself. And it's a deeply intimate environment. It's one where you're going to continue to go deeper, where you're going to continue to look deeper. And that's going to set you free. And maybe you'll be blessed with everything because you can return to an eternal covenant of your potential. And love speaks to your greatness. Love is a reminder of the goodness in mankind. When we see that goodness, so can we see our potential. Now, we're here to bring that into reality. And so there are experiences that have happened to you in your life that you completely disregard. And I think through a lot of the work that you can do here, you can get a much better light on what that looks like. And what I mean by that is that, when we talk about our past and we talk about the pain of our past, we're talking about the places where we felt the most powerless. And this is the problem with that, is that inherently you've removed clarity from the future of your life. Childhood traumas can pave your purpose because inherently they've shaped you up to this point. Now, what I've been recognizing at this point is that being able to interact with it on an emotional level is very different than on a mental level. And I noticed that on the emotional level, it's a little more surreal. That's actually where the progress is made. Because it's not a question of your ability to conceptualize and then to break down and understand and see the cause and effect and to see where there was love. It's to feel where their pain is, because that pain is here now. So that relationship was interesting because I felt so seen in it. And I realized that my old life, and I guess you could say that was the conflicting world that I wasn't very familiar with. That was where I was seen in a lot of ways, but a different part of me. Usually near the end of a relationship, these two worlds come and clash. And you could say, well, this is the opportunity for you to recognize what isn't you. Because I've recognized that a lot of that old world was not reflective of what I was finding in that new world. I was looking to preserve a community, my Jewish friends, my faith, a job that I no longer even have at this point. So I recognized that all of these things that I was looking to preserve was a product of me being afraid of the process of transformation through me being seen. And that was so contrary to my identity. And what I found to be really interesting is that in the midst of this breakup, the last 3 weeks were the most painful experiences of my life, because it didn't just involve my ex-girlfriend, it also involved my mother. And what I often noticed is that if you don't really start dealing with your attachments in relationship to what you're looking for maternally, well, let me tell you what happens. It's a deep wound. And begin to bring it into all your relationships. Unfortunately, a lot of people do that. And the thing is that it's not even reflective of the people that you're going to be with. I think it's more important to understand how that there's parts of you that you're seeking to be loved. When we talk about something to be validated, we want it to be actualized. We want it to be recognized. What I've often noticed is that we aren't really looking for much when we come to the people we love. We want them to be there. We want them to listen, and we want them to understand. And we're in a world where that's no longer valued. And I recognize it's no longer valued because it doesn't have a utility. You'll find the utility in that when you experience a life without it. What's up, everyone? I hope you're enjoying the video. This is going to be for individuals that are seriously looking to work with me. I don't extend that to everyone because it's truly not for everyone. If this content is really challenging you in the way that you feel is best, that is bringing you closer to yourself, then take it in with my community or even in my private work with my clients. If this is you, you can go ahead and click the link below and my team will go ahead and reach out, and I'd love to see you on the other side. Now, my relationship with my mother has been an absolute roller coaster my whole life, and it's not been a very good one. But I'm recognizing what it is to let go. And you can let go of these entanglements. And what I've noticed allows you to let go of them is your ability to feel them. Often when we were young boys and young girls, you're forgetting that you are the future. And if you remove yourself from that future, the evolution of mankind falls apart. You have a great responsibility to bear. This is going to be the generation of deeply sensitive people. People that are caring, people that have insight, people that understand that evolution is beyond another world war. It's potentially the ability to bring goodness into this world. And it's an attribute of consciousness sensitivity, and it seems to be one that's not deeply understood. And that's still so interesting because I think that as human beings, we are deeply sensitive, and we remove ourselves from that sensitivity. And by doing that, we diminish our consciousness. a nice observation about majority of relationships is that the emotionally mature pairs with the emotionally disconnected. And a lot of people have experienced this union, and because it's actually the 21st century union, and you have to start thinking about, well, then what's the children? Well, children are going to be inherently, they're going to have a lot of the foundation of what makes this exactly inevitable, so you can learn from that. And you don't need to recreate it per se, but you can recognize what creates that is the removal of the expansion of this kind of understanding. And so there's something really important about being seen. And it's like, well, the premise of intimacy is to see into. And for me, I can get a really good visual of it, but you just have to bear with me for a second, because what I could see in relationship to being seen is that often the places we like to see ourselves the least is when we're in the most pain. But even on an unconscious level, a truth about relationships is you're going to pick one that allows you to experience yourself. And so you might have not been able to experience yourself when you're younger. And what to say, to experience yourself is maybe your despair, it's maybe your pain, it's maybe your shame, it's maybe your sadness. And you're going to subconsciously, frame other people into a position to allow you to experience yourself. And that's not a relationship. I started thinking about what really quantifies a beautiful relationship is the ability to share that with somebody. Is that, maybe it's a boring life per se, but it's the richest experience you could ever share with somebody. Because that's life. And life is furthest from boring. And we start thinking about what we need to do to entertain ourselves. The constant miracle of life should be the source of entertainment because it's constant, it's always surrounding you. We think about the richness of sharing a book with somebody or journaling side by side, or to experience the vastness of each other's bodies. The depth of each other's souls. Conversation, connection seems to be what unifies us all, what allows life to make sense, what makes this so beautiful. This beautiful lyric from the movie Sweeney Todd, and it's in the song Pretty Women. Pretty women, a reminder that heaven's on earth. And there was something deeply beautiful about that. And I said, yes, you can bring that to reality. Maternal is a representation of the beauty that inspires greatness in mankind, that allows them to understand heaven can be built. Heaven is not the removal of all things that remind us of a deep, real hell. I think life's better than that. But we could choose to create that in our lives. That's a garden state, a return to innocence. You could even start to feel guilty for the things that you experience, the feelings you have. You could feel wrong. And you couldn't be more right. I think this allows you to understand a little bit more the nature of emotions. They seem to be reflective of a reality. Might not be the reality in front of you, but there's a reality internally. And as parents, the space you can give your children is the ability to be able to recognize as much of that as possible. Well, why? Because when we're talking about the future, maybe you're here with the one thing you believe never belonged. And you're going to bring it to this world. And that's exactly what the world needs, and you need it most. Something my client said, and I'll end it off on this. We have very vivid memories of ourselves as children, at least most of us. And I think that seems to be really interesting, is that you have to connect with that child. Your path is there. Pain is there. Your love is there. The clarity of your future is there. You can be able to experience the pain. You can see the constant love that has been throughout your whole life. The pain shapes you into something very necessary. It gives you the ability to experience the accumulation of all of what the trauma has made you, and to allow you to consciously track that down to its core. To recognize the hatred that drives you, the fear that's deeply rooted in your nervous system. You could plant a seed of love. And it's almost as you do, the seed of love is a conscious re-feeling of all of what's allowed you to be here. And something about that creates the actualization of a person. I'm beginning to understand that this work is no longer negotiable. Because when there is a big disconnect, there will be predators. And when there's predators, they'll feed off the vulnerable. And when they feed off the vulnerable, they're fucking themselves in the long run. We are mankind, collectively, together. You look for your best interest. You have mankind in mind. when you learn how to interact with your childhood traumas, and there's a list of things that I can tell you to do in order to do that. Well, one of them is you have to be willing to accept that you're going to feel like a victim. And that's part of what's going to allow you to set yourself free. You're also going to start recognizing that you've been playing like an adult when you were young, and you've been playing like a child when you're an adult. You want to be able to inherently heal that, is that these things are in front of each other. You can say, what can make something childish per se? And it's like, well, it's because you're constantly neglecting something. You have no ability to stand up to the face of it. And so you're going to be doing the one thing that allows you to grow up. And what's really important is that, the nature of intimate relationships doesn't seem to be like, when I do my couples counseling, I notice that people say certain things that they don't really mean. Because what they really mean is in relationship to what they feel. And what they're saying is a way to avoid what they really feel. And what they really feel makes them feel weak. And so it also makes them feel seen. And so we'll almost put ourselves in positions to activate these certain feelings as a way to allow ourselves to be seen. And that seems to be our greatest need. It's definitely my greatest need. And I've recognized that in people. And it's like, well, it's the one thing that they want to see themselves as the least, is the place that you need to be willing to put yourself. And if you could be willing to put yourself in the place that you'd be willing to be seen the least, then you could learn to actualize this experience for yourself, and you could let go. Because you recognize, well, my God, I have the ability to embrace that. And it's like, well, how do you embrace it? Well, you could feel it. All right, so what did it look like for me? What can you do in order to begin to recognize yourself? Look at your past relationships. Look at your relationship with your mother. This is a very important one. It'll show you something very beautiful. I have this visual of me when I was younger. I was constantly crying. Constantly felt sad. I felt deeply depressed at a very young age. But I'm recognizing that now, is that I'm very depressed. Yet I'm connecting with it. I feel alive through that. No one would ever tell you that. The nature of my work is to help people get connected to that path, to feel what's on that path. It sets them free. They get connected to their needs on that path. They meet themselves on that path. And the beauty of it is, it might be the darkest place of your life, but it's through the depths of hell you emerge, you rise. And I love that because it's so reflective of transformation, because inherently that's the journey of love. It's not one that's removing you from everything you're afraid of. It's one that's showing you that. And you could say the masculine is the guiding force, and it's the force that will be holding your hand. It will be showing you what you can face and how you can face it. And it wouldn't be introducing you to it unless it believed in you, and that belief is love. You stand before that cosmic demon, and there's something very fascinating about what that reveals about you. You can overcome. It's David and Goliath. And as a kid, I was never allowed to feel sad or inherently to feel emotions. It was always a problem. What's wrong? What's wrong? It's like, whoa, nothing's wrong. Well, you might say, well, when do you go ahead and change that? Well, look, to be real with you, if I was a little bit more unconscious and I cared a little bit less and I was more deterministic and I had a bigger resistance to the things that I feel, I probably wouldn't be talking about these things. I'd be working a job conforming to everything that's there until I started recognizing the nature of life. It's not to be compared to others. The same answer remains. To become the best version of yourself requires you to challenge the integrity of the life that you have. And I notice that's important because, you could take things like gratitude and you could use that as a way to suppress everything that about your life you are looking to aspire towards. And there's something really beautiful about that, because then that means that there's a purpose. And maybe if you were to live that purpose, that means you're grateful. So you don't need a gratitude journal anymore. Yeah, you're given life. Live it. There's your gratitude. You are given. I want more. That's somebody who's truly grateful. It's the beginning of the conversation. It's a recognition that life was made for you. You're not entitled to it. You could experience the truth of life. You were given that. The worst part is, when I was hurt, I was never seen. I was dismissed. And your parents won't understand that. I mean, fucking hell. I hardly understood it for years. I dismissed people all the time. I became deeply reactive and shut people down. I found narratives that were rational. With the people closest to me who just wanted to tell me what I did hurt them, the best I got was to completely dismiss them, to make them feel weak. And I'm recognizing what that feels like myself, because I continue to do that to me. And that trip that I had in Israel to visit my grandma, I brought this up. It made me recognize, wow, you don't start recognizing that you created attachment to meet that even through your maternal line or through your parents, and then even through your relationships. You'll be so far removed from meeting that for yourself. I think that the Great Depression that I've been experiencing recently has brought me a lot closer to being able to see that for myself. And I could finally come closer to an experience of recognizing, no, that's how I felt. That hurt. And you might even think that it's interesting that what did I feel after that? I felt guilty. Because I'm not allowed to feel that way. I must have done something wrong. This is deeply healing. And this is what deep healing looks like. Your ability to feel. And there's something transformative about it. Well, I'm kind of getting a little bit of the picture. It gets shown to me in angles, little bits at a time, and it sets me free. It will set you free too.